Welcome to the Trending XR podcast, where we discuss the latest in augmented reality, virtual reality, and AI with industry leaders who are shaping the future of how we will work, socialize, and go about our daily lives in the third dimension. In the not-so-distant future, we won't even be using phones. We'll be using these. I know, sounds crazy, but we have never been closer to this future concept becoming our current reality. I am so excited to share this new world with you. I hope to teach you, inspire you, and ignite your passion for extended reality. It's time to change dimensions. Are you coming? Welcome back to Trending XR. Today's guest is the XR lead at Sierra Space. Our guest isn't just an XR innovator, he's also an AI specialist and 3D data capture expert. In this episode, we're going to dive deep into the technological convergence of XR and AI in the manufacturing process, the ROI of that, real use cases for Gaussian splats in VR, space planes, and imploring students and professionals alike to take extreme ownership of their education journey in such a pivotal shift in how we do, well, everything. I'd like to welcome on Alejandro Mendoza. What's up, man?
Great to talk again.
Hey, welcome onto the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is gonna be an excellent episode. I'm actually really excited to talk about what we have planned, because we met at Archon, and we had the opportunity to kind of like preface this podcast in a conversation already. And it was great. And we had some excellent, some folks around us that were chipping into the convo, who happen to be future podcast guests coming down the pipe here. So I think this is going to be great. If you're into XR, if you're into AI, if you're into 3D data capture, if you're into space, I think this is going to be a fun episode and conversation for the audience. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, I always open up with the guests kind of talking about who they are, what they do. If you want to do that real quick, the mic's yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Name's Alejandro Mendoza. I've been in advanced manufacturing, aerospace, startups, since I was in high school, actually, like well over a decade now. And, throughout that entire journey, just have been, learning from everyone constantly about what the industry of tomorrow needs. Like, what do we need to be more efficient? What do we need to, help us accomplish our mission? And that mission obviously has changed from composites work, which is what I did initially. I have some carbon fiber over there, into commercial aircraft, DoD aircraft, F-35, hypersonics, some other weapon systems. Now, work with Sierra Space, Dream Chaser space plane, satellites, inflatable habitats to replace the ISS. There's a lot of fun things that I've gotten to work on, and some amazing people I've gotten to work with, including astronauts, decades of experience with technicians who have also worked some amazing projects, some directors who've literally built James Webb. So there's a lot of people that you run into in this industry, and at that convergence of technology and mission focus that will bring some pretty amazing minds together. So I'm humbled to be a part of it. Very thankful.
Yeah, just a few cool things on that list. It's pretty awesome. We're gonna, I think, we'll probably loop back into some of those topics of like the actual stuff that you guys do at Sierra Space through the extended reality conversation talking points I have set up here. Thank you for introducing yourself. So like, I guess we can roll right into the first question, which is technological convergence. So I know tech convergence is something that's really important to you, that you care a lot about. Essentially bridging today's workforce into the world of XR and AI from the current way that we do things. So how do you see yourself helping bridge that gap?
Directly. So with my company, Engineered Reality, and the current setup with Sierra Space as a day job still, I have freedom to do exactly one thing, and that is to aid education in understanding of the technologies of tomorrow and how they apply to my job in particular, but also pretty much every other job. I think, especially here in 2025, there's not a single person that hasn't heard the term AI. But I would also contend that maybe not everyone thinks about AI beyond maybe just a subscription or a very expensive data center, or billions upon billions of parameters of, proprietary models. What I hope to do through engineered reality at present, and there's a number of efforts there that I can't necessarily talk about, but they are education focused with several school districts here in Colorado, through memorandums of understanding as well as letters of collaboration with the state of Colorado. Um, I am bringing this technology into the classroom along some extremely innovative and forward thinking teachers. Um, One of which, actually, Shane Stalter, he's over at Monarch High School as part of Boulder Valley School District. And I had the pleasure of hosting him as part of a really innovative program called the Teacher Externship Program, put on by Kelly Reeser at the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. What her program does is place teachers in essentially the most advanced industries that she can, and that includes aerospace. It includes quantum computing, optics, um, all kinds of businesses that, students, a lot of these engineering focused students aspire to be a part of one day. And so by bringing their teacher in, she's directly exposing them to all the concepts that they need to teach their students in order to make them competitive for those positions. And by bringing Shane into Sierra Space, it kind of blossomed this friendship, and we've like met every other week for like the last year and a half, discussing how do we bring technology into the classroom. And, he's working with stuff like even toys that I don't have, Vision Pro. I've got his RTX 5090 here on a little spinning lazy Susan, because we're building an AI computer together.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's just that forward thinking. Even after that teacher externship ended, it's that forward thinking that is bringing knowledge of technological convergence, of reality capture, 3D reconstruction, local AI, as well as extended reality into the conversation in a classroom, so that, his students see the tool and they know inherently how to use it because it's just a visual communication tool. So they are hyper competitive in their robotics teams. And, every year they release the CAD for the new arenas. And these students, like, I'm on the tech advisor board, invited me out, and they're like, "Hey, look, we just got the new arena released. We want to show you something." And within 24 hours of the arena being released, they're in a headset in extended reality, driving last year's robot that they hand built through this year's just released arena. It's like those students get it. And I think, um, you know, continuing to support these efforts with students and their understanding of not just one of these verticals of technology, but all of them together is core to the mission of at least the educational branch of engineered reality. And, there's so many people right now chasing these same goals. A lot of innovators at the St. Vrain School District, some in Colorado Springs. Really, Colorado is a hotbed for these, forward-thinking people.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Education's obviously always been a pretty key, player in society. But I think right now it's like it's so important, like what you said, to get all the Legos out in front of them, so you understand what's available to you to plug together. And this is kind of something I talked to Matt about on our podcast. And I'm kind of a guy who likes to learn about everything, so naturally that's fun for me. So other people are more specialists and they really don't want to necessarily learn about, all the other pieces. But what's
Mhm.
cool about that is when you get a classroom of kids together and they're learning about all the different pieces and parts that make XR work or robotics work, they start to go, hey, what if we hey, what if we did that with this? And like, I like XR, like I'll do that part. And if you do the robotics, and then now you got this really cool, thing that comes out of that wouldn't have happened if you didn't force them in to learn about all those things together. And I think that's what's so cool about the education space now, and being able to put all these really interesting emerging technologies in front of these kids and seeing what they come up with. Because that's where
Mhm.
we're at now. We're in this like building stage.
We are. And I think what's important with kids, especially, is to leverage that which they have arguably more of than us adults. And that is, they've not been jaded by being told what we can't do. There's been, I'm sure you've experienced it as well, like when you're in the workspace, it's a great
Yeah.
idea. And they give you a pat on the head, and it's like, we're never going to pay for that.
Yeah.
These kids are, dreaming of what could be. What they lack in is the technical expertise, and I think that's where they can fill in, um, with AI, for example. Like if they lack coding expertise, you can fill in with AI. If they lack, XR expertise, that's where partnerships with industry come in. And to fill those gaps in allows the students to dream in the fashion that they want to, and to create at the pace of their imagination, which is so powerful.
That's such a great clip for a quote. For AI to be able to create at the pace of your imagination is such a, I think, a really well condensed way of saying like how powerful AI is for the individual. Moving forward, it's frequently through my life, and I'm sure other people experience this. Many have having an idea, but like needing other people to make it happen, and you just don't have them, or you don't have the finances to access people who can do the thing. So
Mhm.
like having I think that's, I mean, really, the future belongs to the most creative people, because you will have this AI agent that can do special skills that you would have previously needed a person for. So I think we're gonna see this. I think it's very probable we'll see this explosion of ideas coming to market instead of just sitting on someone's workbench, because they had
Mhm.
this like incredible tool at their disposal, which is AI. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun to see how that evolves and how students use that to bring their own ideas to the marketplace. Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating. I'd like to I'd like to go into our second question, and it has to do with Sierra Space. Um, Within Sierra Space, how is XR and AI already showing up on the job site, or in your workflows? Can you share a moment where you saw that light bulb go off for a team member, where the technology clearly made their job easier or more safe?
Yeah, so there's many that come to mind. Um, you know, it all started for me back when a gentleman named Mickey Matthew, who has since moved on from Sierra Space to start his own company, um, but he introduced me to XR as a tool. And what he was using it for is proposals for NASA, and visualization of, all that Sierra Space could build. And, I was coming from a advanced manufacturing background, and something just screamed, how about application to what we do build at present? And how do we increase efficiency with this tool for something that's not proposal phase, but right in the middle, the design phase? Because I've been that manufacturing engineer on the NPI, new product introduction line, and I've also built legacy designs. So the legacy designs, right there, you're already on Rev F, and it's manufacturable, things are smooth, very, very minimal design changes. Maybe add some tooling to aid the processing, but apart from that, it's pretty well refined. But on these programs that especially defense tech and a lot of these startup space companies are vying for, we're talking about designs that are not yet mature from a manufacturability, testability, um, perspective. I thought, what better to do than to link those, decades of experienced technicians with the design engineers so that we can perform DFX, design for variable, together before the revision A even releases. So, with that being said, you're able to isolate a lot of the problems that would eventually be a massive thorn in your side. And aerospace is famous for it. We're famous for over budget and behind schedule. And in order to, you know, chase down the root cause of those two things, there are teams and teams of engineers who, in like in the present moment, have to do their job and do it well, to essentially correct mistakes that are built in. Well, why not go after those mistakes before they even manifest? And
Mm.
that's been like an entire pitch. An equal visionary at Serious Space, Mark Roberts, my director, heard that and he was like 1,000,000% chase it, go. And it was so unselfish with him and Mickey because they could have equally said, hey, this is what I'm doing, or like this is going to be part of my team and we're going to silo it and it's going to be to our greatness. And they they didn't gatekeep at all and instead just encouraged, and that turned into an enterprise wide pitch all the way up to CEO, CTO, vice presidents, essentially everyone, and having all of those folks in support of this capability as a tool in the tool belt was critical to showing every engineer, every technician that these types of tools are available to you, and your creative mind and your experience are valuable, in that if we can push that essentially into the future, by getting your feedback on the testability of this design, your access to these sensors that you'll eventually have to gain access to, um, the design engineers and those approving the program need that feedback more than even they know, because we cannot, in this modern age with so much competition, afford to be over budget and behind schedule.
Yeah, that's pretty great to hear that it's like it's company wide, because I think probably up till now it was quite common to see XR in the workplace be pretty compartmentalized into like certain factors of the business. So it's great that like they're plugging different departments together to show them what it's capable of, so that they can go, oh, I could use this for this. Whereas
Yeah.
before they may not have got that exposure they needed.
Well, and I mean it's still an exposure battle, frankly. Like I'm still getting people reaching out being like, "Hey, I saw this thing way back when." And um we're a startup. We don't have the luxury of hiring 40 people into this. And so typically it's like, yeah, either I did that or Mickey did that. One of our designers, who's also since moved on, also a rock star, Gabe, Sophie. Yeah, there's people who have like pushed this agenda, and together we are all pursuing the same ends. But um yeah, it's an interesting and ever evolving effort. And I will say, like, it doesn't help in startups, when you get churn of leadership, you get churn of directors, you get churn of even, on the opposite end, technicians who are big proponents of technology. Keeping that effort alive despite that, and reorgs and everything, is unfortunately turning into kind of also a second full-time job. Um,
Mm.
but the
Yeah,
fact
yeah.
is, like, the technology speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, well, speaks for itself is kind of an oxymoron, because it's a visual communication form. So you can see it for yourself. Seeing is believing in that sense. And
Yeah.
so, to onboard new folks and to get them excited is as simple as showing them, what we've done, showing them together the projects that we have built. And then from there, the spark in their mind goes off. And you know what this would be really good for? Every single time. Every single time someone takes off a headset, As long as it doesn't give them vertigo, because if that's the case, they'll be like, "Ah, it's giving
Yeah.
me a headache," which
Yes.
is, kind
That
of
is.
the ongoing, um,
It's an ongoing hurdle for
yeah.
VR specifically. Yeah, I think there is some interesting stuff coming. I've heard about. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I think it was called like Sound Splice or something. I talked to this guy who does VR therapy, and there's like an
Oh, cool.
there's like a megahertz, or I don't know what noted tone it is, but it basically they'd play this, and it curtails the effects of cyber sickness, which I thought was fascinating. I haven't
Interesting.
researched it. Don't quote me on it being
Yeah,
like
yeah.
working, but that was cool. Obviously like pass through. I know this is like you
Yeah.
it's different than being fully occluded, but it's not as bad when you can see your environment. The vertigo effects significantly drop off for cyber sickness when you're not fully occluded or have your environment fully occluded. So that's a pretty good outlook for AR in the workplace for using it as an application for helping you guys with building rocket engines, which is actually something I wanted to ask you about. I thought about it when you were talking. It'd be cool to we talked at Archon about this in private. I don't know if you could share it, but it's how you guys were using VR pass through in the process of working on rocket engines.
Yeah, so we've done some rocket projects with our VR35K programs. Those are out in Madison. And so, you know, we as people who unfortunately can't fly to Madison and check that out, are relegated to just viewing it in our WebXR environment. And so that's the beauty is we have a test cell. We can reconstruct that test cell either using Gaussian splatting or traditional photogrammetry. And then we can be there observing the configuration pre-fire and post-fire. And I'll tell you, some of these post-fires are a lot messier than you'd like them to be,
Mm.
but that's learning and that's, innovating. And the ability to, storytell in a technical way with that reality capture is critical to, capturing all the data that will inform your revision, your next revision.
Okay, this is really cool. All right, so for the listeners, this is can I elaborate on what you guys are doing there with
Yeah.
Gaussians? So if you're new to this stuff, I'll try to break this down as we go, so everyone can kind of follow along. A Gaussian splat is basically this representation of 3D environment or a 3D object without using mesh data, which is like points that are connected by lines, and it can be very data heavy. So it's this new kind of innovative way to show 3D elements without using meshes. So basically, it sounds like what you guys are doing is having this remote telecommunication with another site that is that a subsidiary view? Is it just like another? It's a Sierra Space like Site
It's
2
just
type
another
deal.
branch of the same company. Yeah.
So they're working on in that branch specifically like rocket engines, and whereas they're not doing that in your site, right?
No,
So
unfortunately, I haven't gotten to play with a rocket engine yet.
So what you guys have worked into your workflow process sounds like they're able to scan this with the scanner or their phone, create a
Phone.
Gaussian splat
Mhm.
from their phone, right? Whoa, right? So
Yeah.
people are just using their personal phones
Yeah.
or a work phone to scan a rocket engine. They're sending that as a Gaussian splat to you, and you're able to from your facility view this in VR like in high detail, and it's like
Mhm.
transferring this massive data. Like it's like if you look at these, they're like really impressive. They're very sharp images, and you're able to get that relatively fast from your offsite location and look at these things and inspect them. And like that is such a cool use case of XR and Gaussian splatting. This is like, another testament to like why it's so cool to get into XR, because you end up learning about geospatial and glass technology and thermals and 3D data capture and Gaussian. So it's like you end up like, going down this trail of learning all these new things.
Mhm.
But it's really cool that you guys are doing that. I'll let you take over on that. I'm done
Yeah, well,
gushing
that's
about
the
that. Yeah.
convergence theory for you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in order to effectively utilize one tool, you need elements of the others as well. And so, to effectively capture a test cell, I need to be an expert at, even teaching someone remotely how to walk through and record a good video. I need to know how to extract and optimize sharp frames. Then I need to be, a specialist in understanding what causes the structure for motion process that's inherent to both photogrammetry and Gaussian splatting to fail, and how it succeeds as well. And so from there, it's just optimization of your data. Just like you mentioned, computation of vertices and triangles. You can have the most beautiful mesh ever, but if it's in the event of the Dream Chaser CAD, it started at 692 million tries. You tell me what that
That's
can run
massive,
on.
by the way.
Yeah, because that doesn't run on anything at all.
Right. Special computers and
Yeah, you're
transferring
watching a
is a
slideshow at that
giant.
point. Yep. So instead, preserving quality while minimizing latency, maximizing performance means, yes, you're giving up, you know, all the tries, but to do so in an intelligent way, maybe tries and quads together, or maybe it's Gaussian and maybe you control it to, the 1 to, I say on the upper end about, I've done as much as like 8 million um uh points range, and then you can run on edge devices like even Vision Pro will run some really beautiful stuff. Like for Archon, I kind of released a couple things, personal projects. And to be clear,
Yeah.
also, I don't want to get myself in trouble here. The rocket that you've seen is the one here floating over my shoulder. That is not the Sierra Space rocket because I am not allowed to share Sierra Space stuff, unfortunately. But
That is
that's
unfortunate.
sitting in a museum as part of the Space Foundation in Colorado Springs, and I was down there helping St. Vrain Innovation Center, the school, present their XR program.
Hmm.
So just little caveat, little
Yeah,
yeah, just
and
to make sure I don't get myself in trouble.
noted.
But
Yeah, what you showed me was super cool. I'd like to get into that, because I think you've kind of made some pretty good leaps in your own capacity on using phones for like pretty high fidelity Gaussian splat scans. But before we jump into that, I wanted to pop back to cost savings and ROI. So on the Gaussian process that you're using, just really simply like breezing this, I think that this is such a very common topic that you hear, for obvious reasons. Trying to deploy XR into like the corporate world, ROI is always like the conversation that comes up,
mhm.
and that could be a pretty complicated thing to show because it takes time. One, two. There's only so many examples of other corporations who have implemented XR that were willing to share that data. Thankfully, I've had like podcast guests that were willing to open up about who do VR like commercial level stuff, and they were like, "Yeah, here's some data." So like it's pretty cool to see like some data come out. But just on that, I mean they're making a savings on if they wanted to fly somebody out to go look at this work, they're gonna have to spend a lot more doing that to go to the other site than just being able to immediately send a very high fidelity scan to your VR headset, and you could walk around this thing 1-to-1 scale. Like that's a huge savings on
Yeah.
time and money, right? That's
And
really
what
cool.
happens when it's not technically possible? We're talking about space here. When it's on orbit, you go make sure that sensor is plugged in. It's not possible. And so
Right.
then the next best thing
Yeah.
you do is, okay, well, I'm going to search the digital asset management library. Guess what? There's like hundreds of thousands of photos in there. And frankly, we're working very quickly. So everything is not properly labeled, doesn't have every sensor identified. And um, this is where good data is needed. Good data capture at the point of production, at the point of quality inspection. With that comes the ability to investigate later on. And also with that comes the ability to 3D reconstruct. And so that, you know, on orbit, let's look at the wire harness in that location, make sure obviously it cleared quality, everything's up to spec, but we're seeing anomalies. Let's just look at the sensor as it
Mm.
was when we launched. um And then after something is returned, such as in the case of the Dream Chaser spaceplane, rescan, compare. Did anything change?
Mm.
You don't necessarily need metrology grade scanning, like blue laser scanning, all that stuff. Useful for sure. But I'll tell you, like, most people can discern for themselves between A and B if something has changed, um, just by looking at them literally side by side, the same
Yeah.
assembly floating in front of you side by side.
Hmm.
And that's just not possible um, with any other technology besides XR.
Yeah, actually, like part of my next question here is we just kind of started getting into it. So on the spacecraft side, do you think we'll eventually see astronauts rocking AR glasses or VR headsets up there? Like, but like in like all
Um,
seriousness, like where do you think like immersive tech fits into the space environment moving into the
HoloLens
future?
has already been to the International Space Station.
Oh, I actually didn't know that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
there
cool.
has been AR instances on ISS. I think, going forward, and, not to talk about that which hasn't come to pass too much, but
Yeah, right.
um, if we're talking about, safety, we're talking about putting people in space here. Um, Unfortunately, they don't have the ability to go walk down the hall and tap their safety guy when, God forbid, there is a fire on board. There's a situation on board, a leak of some sort. Um, that's where, the convergence of a purpose-built local model, a visualization technology. I probably wouldn't use XR in that case. I'd use AR so that you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing what you're doing,
Yep.
as well as, the ability for an astronaut to capture the anomaly that they're seeing, scan that, send it back to mission control, and then all the engineers on the ground can visualize, okay, this is our actual situation, not just in a 2D picture, but, you know, they can appreciate the situation for what it is and then create, um, or maybe even have pre-created an answer to that specific anomaly.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
in
that
that you're kind of incorporating all the intelligence of everyone on the ground to aid you in whatever you're facing in orbit or even on other planets.
yeah, and that's cool. And it's a cool thought. It's kind of like tacking back to like a minute ago we were talking about like the AI's involvement in all this, and that's and like taking these data scans and then comparing them and all this like in photos, having an AI that's able to access all of that and intelligently look at multiple models and do like threat detection, say like, hey, notice that between your scan and this scan, this is different. And it's like maybe something you looked over or too busy to see. And that's like, and being able to have that transferred into a heads up display to actionable intel, like actionable, like advice or a step-by-step
Mhm.
guide to fix it. It's already actively, it saw the problem and it's giving you like heads up information on how to actively solve it. Like
Mhm.
that's so powerful, man. Like that could be something that's definitely used in the future.
Yeah, I mean,
For
entire companies will be formed off just that premise alone.
Yeah, the
Um,
speed matters too, and that's about as fast as I think
exactly.
you can get, right?
Well, and I think that's where, teaching the convergence of a technology as, tools in the tool belt is critical because it's not just, oh, AI will identify it for us.
Right.
No, that's just so lazy, and frankly, that's what you see a lot of today.
Mm-hmm.
When we're peak hype AI, I think in the future, what we need to do, and especially in the classroom, what we need to do is call that for what it is. Okay, that's not AI, that's specifically computer vision. That's, let's not even hide behind computer vision term. That is comparison of two vectors. Let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about the math between comparison of two encoded vectors. Dot product, Euclidean, Manhattan. Um,
Yeah, this is like directly piggybacking off what our personal conversation at Archon was. You were very adamant about people needing to know how to do the thing, even if the technology is able to do something at a pretty high level. because like kind of I think what you're getting at here is I'll let you continue. It was like, you know, getting into like down to the vector, like understanding the math. So you can see like you can trust the AI, but like when it's wrong, you'll know. Like it's like, oh, it's clearly this is not right. Like you made a mistake. Show me your vector math on the comparing the the computer vision. Oh, there's clearly this is not right. And you're able to
Yeah.
like make like an informed decision and not just completely be relying on something telling you what the answer is. I That's so important.
That's
Yeah.
engineering. I mean, that's just good tool design. And I think
Yeah.
what, big AI wants right now is to convince us that we need to do all our computation on the cloud and that we need to give away all of our security, our privacy, data sovereignty, and they will simply just solve the problem for us. And you know what? This is a talking point very like for engineered reality, and that is um it's what will come to pass, and I'm calling it out right now. Is you ask any CEO, and I have, how good artificial general intelligence, when we reach that point, is to them, and they will tell you not that useful, because even if that general intelligence is PhD level, guess what? We still have to onboard PhDs for 3 months before they're semi useful in the functions that we put them in. Why? Because only then when they join do they get access to the information that is locked down in enterprise. So what enterprise really needs is not general intelligence. It's not even super intelligence to the point of, general concepts. It's hyper specific intelligence. And that term, I've said it a couple times before. I still don't know if anyone else has said it yet, but that's um it's going to be what enterprise really needs. And if they haven't figured it out yet, they soon will. And those that specialize in building that hyper specific intelligence will be the ones that essentially inherit the crown of, this hype. But instead of hype, it will be substantive, because it will be secure. It will be specific to problems that the enterprise faces, and it will be trained on every problem and every solution that the enterprise has ever faced. And with that, you really start to solve a lot more problems than general intelligence ever would.
Yeah, I think you just coined a term on the podcast. I
I
mean,
keep saying it. I keep saying it. I'm
they
hoping
say
no one said it. I did a Google search like months ago, and I was like, is this going to be my term? I hope.
if you say it enough times, it becomes your coin. Yeah, I think I'll continue to tell people about it so you can get your credit. I
Cool stuff.
I actually heard this is not my quote. This is my favorite quote, but if you Google it, I'm the only person that shows up saying it, which is weird.
Hell yeah.
Because I was trying to refine who said it, and I can't. It was that the quote is my favorite quote is sci-fi is having a hard time staying fiction, and I don't know who said it.
That's
I think
awesome.
I remember him saying it in a lot more. It was a word much more wordy, and I
Yeah.
kind of like condensed it, but I was like, am I technically allowed to take credit for
And
that?
we need to get off this podcast and like trademark these terms right now.
I don't know if I'll get anything out of it, but it'll be a cool talking point at dinner. I I think that this is a really good question, like piggybacking off of what we were just talking about, though, and it's that okay, this is really important. We talked about this extensively with Sebastian,
Yeah.
and it's about hardware hurdles. And so we've talked a bit about different technologies, how you guys are using them, some of the good use cases, but I want to dive into like the hurdles and the shortcomings where we're at now, and then get into like the future of where we're going to get to. So hardware always seems to be in the bottleneck in XR adoption, or seems to be the bottleneck of XR adoption. From your perspective, where are the biggest hardware hurdles right now? And what milestones do we still need to hit before XR becomes truly mainstream for aerospace or enterprise use?
I will say that WebXR is a very welcome step in the right direction, because what it is a hedge against investment in the wrong headset or early investment. Because what we've seen in all the primes um, is early investment with certain AR glasses and
HoloLens.
deprecation of said glasses. And Enterprise feels very burned about it. I think like it's kind of funny because like many people will talk about it, but you know, those people who advocated for it have to turn around to their director, their vice president, their CTO, and say, sorry, it's not useful anymore, or sorry, we cannot actually solve that problem because we didn't get a successor that we wanted. And that's not to call any specific company out as much as it is to say we as experts in XR, specifically expert technologists in general, need to hedge against recommending of any one product. Instead, we need to understand and take extreme ownership of our understanding of the technology in a way that keeps us adaptable, keeps us flexible, so that when a certain headset falls out of usefulness and the next rises, it's not, hey, we need to spend 20 more grand and pivot over to this new headset.
Mm,
Instead,
which
we
comes with
need
its
to
own issues.
embrace something like WebXR that is device agnostic and say those old headsets, they won't have the fidelity of the new stuff, but they're also not trash. They're not write-offs when the new thing comes out. And so that is the hedge bet that enterprise really needs to see and to understand, to pay out to buy new hardware, or to make a measured investment to
Mm,
say, hey, this is not going to disappear in the next year or two.
mm.
We're going to reap maximum value, maximum ROI out of this.
So with like I guess like yeah, so WebXR being the failsafe for the headsets, like so for listeners, if you're new, the WebXR is browser based extended reality. So via computer or your phone, that's you're not experiencing it through a headset, right? Right? Yeah. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if there's like a weird
exactly.
crossover there where you're able to access browser based through the headset, but
So you are. I mean, we
yeah.
before Galaxy XR was a thing, I saw it at AWE. It was called Project Muhan,
Oh yeah, I'm
and
familiar. Yeah.
the first is one of the first things that we did. I was with the founder of a WebXR company, and went off script a little bit to the annoyance of the person doing the tutorial. But he typed in the address, pulled it up, and boom, the WebXR worked just like that on an unreleased headset, and we were floating there with the Curiosity Mars rover 1-to-1 scale. It's like this right there. This works on your Quest 2, your Pico, whatever the oldest Pico is. Like it works on the Quest 3, all the newest and even the unreleased this thing works on. And with that, um, that hedge bet really pays off.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, is that something you think that like should just be implemented in every tech adoption for XR where like it's like because the caveat is that like if it's like specifically like a VR headset or an AR glasses experience like WebXR isn't like using your tablet, your phone, or your computer is not the answer. So that doesn't help you there unless you're able to load it up in like browser through the headset. So, but like what
But also,
challenges come with
like,
that?
if you want to be part of that meeting in which several people at several locations are in headset, you're right, is you can do that literally also through an iPhone. You can do that through an iPad, through a laptop. It's device agnostic, so that not only is it a hedge bet against XR equipment being deprecated, but it is a bet on that which industry has already wholeheartedly embraced, and that's 2D. Like we're designing in CAD a 3D format and we're addicted to 2D, viewing it on a screen, not at all 3D native with any of these processes. And 3D printing was a step in that direction, actually. Um, my director Mark Roberts is also visionary in that it's like, let's build one-to-one mock-ups and then do things like harness layout both in XR as well as with mock-up harnesses, so that we can refine down our harness design, so that we're not chasing assembly issues later on. That kind of thing, um, that kind of project is made easier when everyone can join from the device that they already have, even the device in their pocket.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's really good for the short term, and that may change as like headsets roll out. They become more capable. They become more affordable. Everyone has one. You're able to use whatever headset you want to access the same thing, which is where it gets a little complicated. There's some walled gardening going on, right? With Meta's headset versus Apple, of course, because they're different companies, and they necessarily want you to be able to access everything, from any headset, because they want to sell their headsets. So we're kind of battling that, I think, a bit, as
Yeah.
users, and that always will exist. But it's cool to be able to have the ability to access it from whatever you got. And I think that will continue to get easier as, there's one or two headsets that kind of dominate the market, moving forward. So I'm excited for that future where we're able to kind of like use, the hardware that's best for the job, and not have to worry about all these fail-safe things and working off browser when or like a tablet or a phone. We should be using like the VR headset for the job. Um,
It's
but
a conversion to being 3D native. And, people are like, oh, well, we don't really need that. Um, you could make that argument, but in reality, everyone and their two eyes is 3D native to begin with. So why wouldn't you want to communicate in the fashion that we're already used to? We've just normalized 2D because that's the only technology that's been available to us for decades.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been my thesis for years on why XR is going to explode. I'm like, if you look at if you look at history, right? We have only gotten more technologically advanced as a species. We always want the new iPhone. We always want the new technology that's going to make our lives better or easier. Um, and it's like we went from these like big computers down to these like small computers, and then we went from a phone and then two cameras and four cameras, and then it there's a track, and it runs out of like innovation to be able to get better. And it's like, okay, what's next for humanity? Well, it's obviously moving out of 2D and going into 3D, going from face down to face up, and interacting with our environment, work and socially. And that's like that opens up doing things as humans in ways we've never done before. It's like a whole like revelation for humanity, I think. So it's like when that happens and people start building for it, everything's gonna change. And
Mhm.
we're gonna be like, wow, I never even thought that I'd be doing this like this, because I always just used a phone, looked at a screen, and now I'm like seeing air quality in instead
And
of checking my like weather app to see that. Yeah.
it's funny because if you look at the father of CAD, Turing with SketchUp, the second project that he did right after that was a way to view the 2D engineering drawing in AR, the Sword of Damocles. So
Yes. Right.
CAD, AR, invented literally together decades ago,
Hmm.
and we're now just catching up. Be like, oh yeah, obviously we want it in 3D when that was always the intent.
Yeah, and I don't know if you played with any 3D modeling softwares in VR?
I have. The guy that I was talking about earlier, Gabe, I'll give him every credit because he's a wizard at building in 3D. It's funny because even like I'm, halfway dangerous in CAD in 2D, but he's like just gifted in terms of whatever program it is actually modeling stuff in 3D, and you just see him like go through, and it's wild.
It's
Um,
so
but
cool.
it's yeah,
It's
it's
an
just a
acquired
skill
taste.
that like yeah we should all definitely work with in the future. But you know, um, growing up, excuse me, growing up, we didn't really have that opportunity, and so I think um,
I wanted it.
designing in 3D is maybe something that this next generation will be better than anyone at.
Yeah, I think that it's like it's a mix, right? I don't think it's gonna replace like doing 3D modeling or 2D modeling on computers, but it's like it's an acquired tool set, right? For people who like that, like me. I have dreamt of that since I was a kid. I was like, I want to be able to like see it in front of me and move it and like manipulate it with my hands and not have to
Yep.
like use a mouse and AWS. Like
Oh, it's Iron
that's
Man. It's Jarvis.
it's foreign to me. Yeah, so like Jarvis
Shout
to
out Ian.
me, yeah, it's like
Ian Dawson, I was telling you about him. Cool
yeah, it's
guy.
like that's like I think for me the most like intuitive way to work on things. It depends on the project you're doing, right? But like I'm like a sculpturist. I'm an artist of many mediums. I have been for years. But like that to me is like so natural. Being able to like take the piece and put it here and like just like squeeze it and like thin it out and like all right, that's good. And then
Yeah.
what's cool is you could take that file and just like you were talking about before, is you can go direct to print. So like now I'm printing this 3D object I was working on in 3D to my
Mhm.
3D printer. And it's just like really cool new workflow of like iterating designs and even finished products. I mean, you can do pretty good modeling in these VR headsets and export like a finished 3D printable like finished product.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
nuts.
especially for
It's so cool.
human-centered design, right? Like to design something that's, technological, but humans won't really interact with it. In that sense, doesn't, I wouldn't say make a lot of sense, but like Gabe and his work on a lot of the lunar programs, the stuff that we're chasing, it's all human factors. So why not design at the scale of human? And ah man, it's powerful. Um
Yeah, it can be, but then shortcomings. This is I guess the topic I would like to see if you would like to touch on.
yeah.
If you can. Since you guys are using XR in the workflow process at Sierra Space, where are the shortcomings for XR? Like the things that no one talks about enough that really need to be brought up. It's like we can solve it, but this is something we really need to address.
Yeah, so it actually was, I was glad to see it as a topic in our talk at Archon.
Yeah.
Um and that is like Argyle. Um the main issue I see, the main hurdle going forward is not necessarily the quality of XR. We've gotten to the point where pass through is great. Augmented reality, it's getting there. It will soon be great. But object tracking, man, it kills you because all you want to do is do an overlay and you want to view, what it is you'll do next. Or you want to have X-ray vision, see what's behind what you built. But it's just killer when that, model is shifting and you're looking at something and like even your anchors, and like I've done it even with lighthouses, it's just not as robust as it should be. And again, that goes back to um the tracking that is being integrated as a back end to all these services.
Mm.
We really need to improve upon essentially what is simultaneous localization and mapping, SLAM, in order to get that which you have already scanned or your CAD to overlay and lock
Mm-hmm.
regardless of orientation onto what it is you're trying to evaluate. That right there, and unfortunately it is linked to hardware. It's linked to lidar
LiDAR.
sensors and computer vision algorithms in terms of the software side. If that can be figured out, that's what will really make a certain headset rise above the rest.
I've seen
Um,
some. I've seen some stuff recently that's actually really impressive for fixing drift and model lock.
mhm,
Um, that I forget the term for it. It's like hit or something. It's using like a one lidar beam as like detecting a surface, and it's doing like hit markers, and it's able to do this rather accurately, and it's like very stable. I just started reading about this, so I wish I could go into more detail on that.
mhm.
I'll maybe plug something in post podcast here to
Yeah,
educate more on it.
even like, Vision Pro was a massive step forward. Unfortunately, not for enterprise. Um, I think it could have been. Um, and I think it still can because their entire object reconstruction API, ARKit, SceneKit, all of these tools were built with capturing reality, reconstructing reality, and then easily converting to a core ML model, training machine learning model to recognize that object. And we've done it here. Um, and the lock, it's great. That being said, enterprise, a lot of enterprise hasn't been able to use Apple Vision Pro because of MDM not being, fully robust, fully released. Vision OS 2 helps address some of those issues, but then you have the cost issue
Mm.
because if we're talking, pass through, then you have Quest 3, and it's like, well, you could buy how many Quest 3s for one Vision Pro? Those numbers kind of hurt.
6?
Yeah. More. Yeah,
Whoa,
almost 7. So
that's
yeah, that's kind of
nuts.
brutal.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, not great on the price point. Hopefully,
yeah, but
Apple Vision Pro
I
2 is
think,
better on that.
as these things become more affordable, like to your point, I think as the methods become more known to how to robustly track, hopefully industry will be able to move past that as a pain point.
Yeah, I think it will. It's just time. It's like we had all these same problems earlier in XR. It's always the same combo. It's just like it was this before, and now it's like it's getting to here, and eventually it's like it will become a non-issue. It's going to take some time. It took a big tech lift on a lot of the different portions that we've talked about having to mature a bit to come together and get us where we're at now. But
Mhm.
I've seen like some like exponential leaps in all of those individual pieces of the tech for XR, where you're like, okay, I think in the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to see a whole different landscape for XR in
Mhm.
terms of like availability, and price point and capacity for what it can do, and computing, and fidelity of imaging. I think like it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out in the next three,
Oh yeah.
and
And
how that starts to get implemented.
yeah, and what I want to emphasize too is that that is not a sign to anyone listening to say, "Oh, I'll wait, those 2 to 3 years and then we'll get into it." You know, we are 2 to 3 to 5 to maybe even, I think technically 8 years behind individuals who have made effective, devastatingly effective use of the tools that came before that aren't even near the quality that we have today. You know, um, she's called the godmother of XR. My good friend and mentor, Shelley Peterson, was doing this stuff at Lockheed Martin, of all places, saving millions of dollars with the original HoloLens. So, what's your excuse? It's
Mm-hmm.
not hardware. It
Mm-mm.
really is like your problem solving ability with your creativity and just straight up bootstrapping solutions that capture the technology that you have available to you and problem solve with it. It's possible. And there's no reason to wait around on, the next great thing.
No, there isn't. And I think that's like that's directed to you, corporations. Like stop being so
Fired.
adverse. Not
Clean.
out of not from my mouth, not
Okay,
Alejandra's.
okay, good.
But I think directed towards you, corporations. Like stop being so adverse to like technology. I understand investing early is always scary, but like we're already seeing the data. Like I think you could just sit there and think about it for a few minutes and be like, okay, this is incredibly useful. Here's an example. Annie Eaton, to quote her, their numbers that they shared with me that are public, they saved doing VR training with new employees. They saved $20 million at one site. One site. So scale that up
Insane.
by 50 if you're like Amazon's got hundreds of sites. Like it's so useful in so many ways, and it's just getting started. And once we get AR into the mix, it's not even. It's like, man, there's they're gonna be begging for it, and that's why it's so important to see that now as people like students who are interested in this to like start learning now. Watch this podcast. The people that I have on here are brilliant people. Go to their individual content, start learning about maybe the avenue that you found most interesting, and start applying it to your XR knowledge because we need people to build. And as soon as they're all like, oh, actually, we want this, you're there ready to start building. You already have the knowledge. You're not like, now I have to start learning about XR. Like, you don't want to be the person that's late to the game on the developer side. I think it's really important that people who are interested start like really getting into it now. Because I think we're close, man, to
We
a big
are.
adoption curve. I think we're getting to that inflection point. Sub 3 years, I think we're gonna see some big stuff happening in XR. I'm biased, obviously, because I was a big nerd for this stuff, but I think it's true.
Well, I think it will be much like, the convergence theory that I'm talking about, a differentiator of companies that make it and have devastating success and those that remain in kind of the mediocrity of making, yesterday's tools work and
Mm,
who are scared to jump in.
mm-hmm.
The future belongs to those who take risks, measured risk, but risk nonetheless.
Sure. Yeah, and it's always been that way. And there's
Mm-hmm.
endless examples throughout history to show that. And I think that the impact on workflow, since we were just talking about that and with corporations and adopting, I think this is a good question to dump into. So, since bringing XR and AI into your processes, what kind of measurable impact have you seen, whether that's efficiency, collaboration, or even just a better connection of workers amongst each other through the process of using this tech?
I'd fill in D, all of the above. So, I mean, yeah, it's I don't have as sexy numbers as $20 million just yet, but you know, the revision of a design or um the manufacturability review that we did by overlaying harnesses into a one-to-one 3D printed mock-up and then having the design engineers meet the manufacturing engineers and to speak um, to what they're going to do next while being informed by that. That was just the latest win. And I think it is, the latest of many different observations that were made evident only by XR. To view things visually, get off your 2D screen and into 3D. Like I've had an astronaut, I've worked with several astronauts. Also, that's massive blessing. But it's funny because they speak that language and they were shuttle program astronauts, and you throw a headset on them, immediately starts taking bio measurements. They understand what percentile that their body is, and so to inform human factors designs based on someone who's actually been to ISS and telling you, how cramped it is, how do we improve upon that design now in our design so that when we put up that solution that replaces ISS, those astronauts, those people conducting science don't have to be, constrained by the same physical constraints that they had to face and work under. Um, that kind of thing, it's not just quantifiable in dollars, but it's also quantifiable in opportunity.
Mm.
What are you giving the opportunity for the next astronauts to accomplish if you refine the design with the lessons learned on your missions?
Yeah, I mean, just confidence alone, like efficiency of doing the work. and so in timing, right, how long it takes you, but then confidence of doing the job. So like having the confidence boost of having data heads up in front of you, hands free, and knowing it's accurate and something that you can kind of work with, so you're able to use your brain to focus on the thing that's really most important for you to be doing at that time. Whereas before, they would have had been doing calculations and trying to fix this thing. And it's like, are we able to use the technology to make them better at what they do? And that there is quantifiable. Like
Mhm.
outside of just ROI, it's okay. How much safer are our astronauts in space because they have the access to this technology, and we built it to help them in that capacity. I think that's
Yeah.
like that's such an important part to talk about too, because it's not always about money, and that always happens to be the first conversation that happens. But there's other things that are as important that this can
Mhm.
help with.
Yeah, and you hit on it. Safety being paramount. I mean, if we are to, become an interplanetary species, if we are to, go where none have ever gone before, like look at the early space capsules. Like if you go to DC, go to the Smithsonian and view, this burned up little cramped, crisp little reentry vehicle. It's like, what insane person put themselves in this? Like for the sake of science and pursuit of human greatness, like, damn, that's amazing.
That museum's awesome, by the way. I've seen it
Yeah,
personally. You
it's
should definitely
wild.
go visit it. Yeah.
Um, but you turn around and you say, okay, this person did that so that the next person doesn't have to. And the designers, need to iterate and understand things in person on a human level in order to learn those lessons and to improve upon the designs that enable that much more science to take place.
Uh, can you? This is like, I think this is really cool to talk about the like in more detail, because you just like glazed it earlier, like how you guys were, because we talked about this extensively before, but I'd like to maybe elaborate on like the actual process of how you're using XR. And like, I think you were telling me a story about there was like a piece behind something, and it was like this big problem, and like this I think XR solved that issue. Can you elaborate on that? Are you allowed to talk about that?
Ye- yes. Yeah. So,
All right, this is
um,
cool. Yeah.
the problem was 2D. The problem was engineers viewing CAD on laptops. And they're cooking their laps, and they said, you know what, my engineering high spec laptop is running on 1 frame per second. I'm just gonna, uncheck some boxes here. And those boxes were subassemblies. And those subassemblies, lo and behold, we're obscuring a lot of the sensors and the locations of the prop system that we needed to evaluate. That becomes a problem when suddenly you screenshot that. You forgot you unchecked those boxes. You screenshot it, you send it to the test team, and you're like, yeah, you should be able to do 15 of these in one night. And that will keep our test schedule on pace so that we can go to Armstrong Test Facility and do our T-bag testing. Well, lo and behold, all those, little decisions of, just unchecking a couple things so that your computer would run more performantly manifest when the test team gets on site and they have a very sensitive X-ray tube, and it's a mess of wires and harnesses, and in some instances just straight up aluminum that is in the way of the inspection site. And suddenly they realized, our reality doesn't look like your picture. What's going on here? And how do we plan around that? So the question became, how can I visualize and plan for that which actually exists? And how do I evaluate it with human factors in mind? My two hands and the setup and the X-ray tube are all I have to accomplish this inspection. I can't be God's eye in CAD and just like distort to this one specific view and be like, oh, you got access. And in reality, it's like a pinky's worth of access. Well, let's just float the entire vehicle in extended reality. Let's put it in reality with us. And, this vehicle ended up shipping, to Armstrong Test Facility and is in TVAC. It's literally inaccessible because it's in one of the world's largest vacuum temperature controlled chambers for testing. And we're just, wondering, like, how are we going to accomplish this? And so by putting the vehicle in all of its splendor and every single one of its parts down to the fastener, and that's the thing, like, people, it's like, oh, just get rid of all the little stuff. That was part of the problem before. So how can I push XR so far that I don't even do that? And the answer is, with a lot of hard work, you go from 692 million tries to, about 25 million. Then you have pretty high powered GPU with a tethered headset and hand tracking, LiDAR depth sensitivity, and a technician who is open to putting a headset on, and boom, suddenly Dream Chaser's floating in the room with you down to the fastener, and you can plan out inspection of all these locations with everything turned on.
Pretty amazing.
The chief engineer saw it. He's like, okay, prove to me that that's actual reality, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's great that it's CAD, but is our as built, matching our
Right.
design?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, within 24 hours, I was on my way to Armstrong Test Facility and scanned the vehicle, um, and overlaid that reconstruction onto the CAD in XR, and was pretty devastated because I was like, I can't see anything. Like, I don't understand what's happening now. And so I, still in the headset, go grab the mouse, and I just pull 2 millimeters towards myself, and then my scan pops out of the CAD. It was nested. It was that accurate that the actual scanned reality was indeterminate from the CAD.
That's wild, dude.
It was like this moment where I went from, like, being really disappointed that all that effort went to nothing to, okay, this is like super viable. It's crazy accurate.
That's one of
Yeah,
my new favorite stories.
it
That's
was a
such a
good one.
that's such a
It
good
was funny.
story,
Like,
dude.
the CEO came by after I showed it to Jacob, or Jason Hinkle, chief engineer. He told, his boss told CEO. CEO comes walking by, let me see it, puts it on his face, is like, this is insane. Wait here. Goes and pulls his entire executive leadership team out of a meeting running this entire company. And he's like, wait, check this out. Look at this.
That's
And yeah, it was wild. It
that's
was
when
a
you know you
really.
just made a breakthrough in how we do things.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's a fascinating story. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. I think that that is such a great testament to why you should just keep pushing forward, keep trying, keep saying, I think we could do this like this, and like I got this idea. Like just trust me to like at least let me show you proof of concept.
Yeah.
Take those leaps with your coworkers and people above you, and just if you got something, just trust in your gut because you might have a similar story to Alejandro, like the one you just heard. I think I think that might lead us into I, we're hitting the hour 14 marker. I'm fine on time if you got time.
Yeah. Let's keep
Okay,
going.
cool. So like 'cause before I get like into like the last couple questions, I wanted to go back because on that tagging off of like something you did, something you found, like that was a breakthrough. That was amazing. Like we're able to do things in a new way now, and I think I guess that kind of ties into what you've been working on outside of Aerospace. Are you comfortable talking about that?
I can a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so you've showed me a few things on what you've been doing with optimizing cell phone LiDAR scanning and Gaussian splatting uh, for a not active Sierra rocket engine. It's very, very clear. All right, we'll put a
Caveat.
disclaimer at the top. And I thought that what you were working on was pretty profound, and it'd be pretty rad to maybe just breeze that real quick if you're cool with that before
Yeah.
we get to
So,
the end here.
it's funny because it was actually born out of the realization that, I can't convince, an enterprise to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a scanner. And I obviously can't, at least right now, drop that same amount of money in my personal life or as part of my business, engineered reality. Um, but what can I do? How can I maximize the technology in my pocket? Because if it's, computationally more capable than what we flew to the moon with, I'm pretty sure it's my responsibility to try and maximize fidelity of that device first, to understand and, learn the limit of that device before I graduate into, the higher end. Because if I can be devastating with, a commonplace device, you just wait till what you see next. And it's in understanding of not only hardware but also softwares, like what runs behind these processes. Gaussian splatting relies on structure from motion. Structure from motion requires motion. Boom. Yeah. Not That's obvious. However, it's specific motion. It's essentially kind of like a little dance around that which you're trying to capture. And the better you do that dance, the better the result. And that sounds so silly, but in reality, um, actually just sitting right behind me here is a 5090 like I was talking about. But keep it on that turntable and then just simply record and try to drop it into Gaussian splat reconstruction application. All of them will fail, even though it's in a white box with perfect lighting. And, even if I take it on my Sony camera right there, it will fail. And why is that? It's how tracking works. I need to understand not just structure from motion as a abstract concept. I need to understand keyframe detection. I need to understand the calculation that's happening to back calculate the angle between two camera perspectives. Well, that should tell me how to move the camera. And I came from, you know, I was blessed with a father that is a professional photographer and videographer, playing with cameras my entire life. And it's funny because his life's work has kind of directly impacted my ability in that I had exposure to good um, photography and videography skill building as a child, and wondering how far it could push. The beauty of what you can create is what my dad does for a living. Well, then when I realized reality reconstruction is simply pushing even that a little bit further, but it's still the photographer or videographer's responsibility to utilize the same skill set that was developed all the way back in the film days, the best principles, to then reconstruct something beautiful, something lifelike. And it's like that understanding of, you know, good use of camera as a tool, understanding of the algorithm that is uh, used to calculate position, to reconstruction optimization methodology of minimizing Gaussians, minimizing floaters, um, uh, addressing specularity, addressing transparency, and how to capture those things so that they're represented in your end result. That right there is like from the roots of how to use a camera. And in the modern age, um, it's kind of a lost skill, even though we have more cameras in the world than ever before. And I would encourage, anyone looking to do reality capture to, not look at the Sony camera, not look at, Portal Cam, not look at any of these sexy tools or um, beyond what's in your pocket, and maximize that first and understand what goes into it. And then, you'll be well ahead of anyone, even with the expensive equipment that doesn't understand it.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to like where we on the film side of things, like where we've seen like people have basically created some pretty high level content using a phone camera. Whereas before that wasn't possible. And that kind of was bridged by these like DSLR video cameras that came out in like late 2010s, 2016 range. Where like before that you needed a very expensive camera. And then these came out and people were like, "Whoa, like this is shooting 4K and it's
Mm,
got 10-bit color." It's like it's got like all these things that you'd get on a
yeah.
fancy camera in a compact format, and it's like, well, phones have basically done similar things, right? So, and it's really important too. It's because everyone has one of these. Every
Mhm.
person nearly has a phone, and those phones, because of that, have gotten so technologically advanced, and it has like all these different um capacities for like it's got like what are all the sensors inside a phone? Like, I should know this. I'm better at this. Like, it can track like telemetry, G-force, like longitude, altitude, and
LiDAR.
lidar. You got
Yep.
cameras, like very highly capable cameras. So like all these things are packed into a phone, and you can access that right now. Like, you can use that for XR.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
have an
or Gaussian
entire
Splatting
essential laboratory of equipment in your hand.
for $1,000, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's amazing, you know. So how are we using that? And I think that's like that's the most important focus. That's why I think it's so cool you're focusing on optimizing the phone because everyone has one. And what is the future that I see, at least for everybody, for AR glasses? Everyone will have them, and phones are going to play into that. You know, like if everyone has a phone, that means everyone can scan. That means everyone can have off like in their pocket compute device to help, you know, like have more rich experiences. How are we using the phones into the future to help us with what like I think with AR glasses and scanning and making 3D models and you know like maybe that's like a rabbit hole conversation there to open
Yeah.
up,
Well,
but
I mean, more so, it's like even in my business here, um, whatever enterprise you're a part of, I would be willing to bet that unless you're, in a skiff, you have a phone. And I don't have to convince you to go buy insane scanners or headsets, or I don't have to convince you to buy anything. Just utilize the methods and, adopt the best practices, and the results that you can pull out of that will blow your mind and will answer your need. They will solve your problem if it's based in good data and good video, good photos, properly labeling, filtering for sharpness, filtering for, contrast, all of this stuff, automating it results in good data so that you can turn around and, you know, I just need to find in my digital asset management library that one image. Or maybe I'll just jump into XR and I'll, move my body to get the view that I want. Or maybe I'll just make a computer vision model out of all of the instances, all the video I've taken, all the photos that have been extracted from that video. And a computer will identify that component for me. All of that should be done with the same data. You shouldn't need to evolve your process in any way to reap all three of those results. And that's, the future of engineered reality is specializing in you want to build a computer vision model or you just want to find a photo. They should be based in the same good data.
yeah, that's like approaching that from like an engineering mindset. I think is like kind of core to your how you do things, right?
engineered reality.
Yeah, it's like it's like the core. I guess the core purpose of what you're working on in your personal project, it evolves around just that, right? The data and optimization and doing things,
Hmm.
at the base level properly, right?
Yeah.
Eh, I guess what's your focus on that? Like, do you have like a product or something that's specifically like what you're working on is geared towards, like what you want to use that for?
Yes.
Can you talk about it? I think I got a breeze on that in private, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah,
So
that was privileged information.
I won't share, but it's pretty cool, and it would
So,
be nice
so
if
the thing
one day
is,
we can talk
engineered
about that.
reality at present, due to agreements between myself and Sierra Space, is um constrained to education. And I couldn't be happier about that. Like I said, I'm working with the state of Colorado, several school districts, literal quantum companies. Um, and it's keeping me plenty occupied for now. And I get to teach these concepts, this mindset to students. And, until maybe I'm ready to step out into the
The great
ether
unknown.
with my own idea,
Yeah, I got
that
you.
that will stay, with me for now.
So I guess before I get you in trouble, and we're getting into the hour and a half mark here, I have two questions that are like, well, there's three, but this one I think we can breeze pretty quick. Just like your light viewpoint on fast forwarding 5 years into the XR horizon. Like, what does the XR and AR landscape look like inside organizations like Sierra Space? Are we talking about fully spatial workflows, digital twins, or even AI co-pilots in designing? If you want to just like quick brief that, just where you see things maybe in 5 years time, uh, in that capacity.
Um, yes. Again,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I think
D,
you're
all
an
the above.
equal visionary in this. I mean, you just described so many great use cases. I would be very sad and also very critical of myself if we did not arrive upon, all of those. Because we need to treat, this the convergence of all these technologies as the tool belt to such an extent that all of those use cases become evident to the teams that need them. They see the capability, they request the tool, and if they don't have the tool, they build the tool. And I'm fully encouraging that needs to take place internally, and um, that's not to gatekeep, other industry professionals, but instead it's to advocate, an aspect of engineered reality and hyper specific intelligence that, the companies that will be successful with the technology tomorrow are those that take extreme ownership of understanding the concepts today and utilizing it in tandem with the internal knowledge that they have in terms of human capital as well as good data, combining those two things to build tools that are specific to them, specific to their own need, instead of looking outside at vendors who frankly overpromise and underdeliver most of the time. Or maybe it's also an enterprise problem to see a pitch and misunderstand it and then implement, and then you have egg on your face because the pilot, didn't, you know, uh, it just wasn't what you pitched to leadership. And then that gets you as an XR professional, and hopefully a visionary as well, in trouble with those individuals, because it's like, well, you didn't understand your scope, you didn't understand your problem, your implementation didn't meet our expectations, and that's the worst part. Like, that's the worst situation you can be in. So to that end, That's why I would encourage people to take extreme ownership of their learning and implement things for themselves based off of raw materials, raw capability, the code, the um, hardware, whatever that hardware may be. Understand it to the level that you can build something with it, not rely upon others to build something for you.
That yeah, and I think you just naturally answered the next question, but I can ask it to you anyways, just to follow on that. If you want to add to that, this is directly correlating to what you just finished with there. If you could send one message to young innovators or engineers listening, who would want to work at the intersection of XR, AI, and aerospace, what would you tell them?
First of all, like we just hit on, start with the device in your pocket, start with what's available to you, because there's another side of industry that is embedded devices that try to do extreme things with minimal compute possible. You can already learn that by, implementing with the device in your pocket. And that skill set is invaluable because guess what? The world shouldn't be addicted to data centers. We shouldn't, just completely abandon our innovative dreams to enterprise level solutions that reside in the cloud. That's not a um, repeatable. That's not an efficient use of anyone's resources. And as much as big companies want us to release that level of control and give away that um, data and our privacy so that they can build that solution to get us addicted to it,
Hmm.
that's what you're fighting right now. So, as a student, educate yourself. Do not be a product, instead, be a creator.
I think I think that's it's so important that you brought that up. I think that no one's really talking about that. Um, it's 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 consequential. Like we're looking at a time right now where this is the peak of like every enterprise's probably board meeting conversations. Like how do we implement AI, cloud stuff into our workflows and like limit like employees and have to do less and rely more on AI to do all the work for us and agents. It's like this promise of like this AI kind of like autonomous workflow is like I feel a bit threatening, there's like almost too much belief in it that it's gonna like solve all our problems, and I think that can get us into some like hot water. And we're already seeing like I think if you look at, and it's early, the data on like young students are like losing critical thinking skills, and it's
Mhm.
like that's concerning, because what when things go wrong, what happens then? Like who's gonna fix it if we stop training engineers and we stop learning how to do it ourselves? I think it's important to learn how to use this tool properly, like you said, to aid us and not become the thing doing it for us. And that's just so
It's
important.
even beyond one step of training engineers. And like it's something I spoke about actually at the White House after the result of this teacher externship project with the state of Colorado. And that is, we need minds who do not, you know, ask for permission. They don't, think that they need a piece of paper in order to consider themselves an engineer. And I know that's a scary concept for enterprise, but I intend to lead the way, with the state of Colorado, with these school districts, with engineered reality, to prove that we can put, you know, um, XR, AI, 3D reconstruction products into positions so that they can solve problems for actual quantum companies. And those pitches haven't been fully inked yet, so also can't be talking about that too much. But the challenge is, um, let's prove that engineering, is a mindset and it's not a sheet of paper, because the inventors of yesterday, do not have that classical, you know, stamp of approval from a four-year institution. And guess what?
Hmm.
They also didn't have hundreds, six-figure debt. And they also didn't have access to, world state-of-the-art laboratories,
Mm-hmm.
but they got it done anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
what's our excuse?
Yeah, gosh, this resonates so deeply with me. As a person who's not an engineering degree holder, but I think's very like has a very engineering type mindset. I couldn't agree more. And it's like that's the thing I always point to is the past. Like those people didn't have degrees. Why did they achieve such great things? It's because they were curious. They wanted to learn about the mysteries of the world around them, and they started to ask questions, and they started to do science, and started combining A and B and finding C. Like that is the very very important message I think that's missing today. I'm glad you brought that up because yes, education is really important, and trusting people to be able to innovate who don't have this degree because they want to. It's really important. It's like to look at the kid that wants to be there, who's asking these questions, who's going out and doing self work and taking, like you said, extreme ownership of their education on their own outside of school. Those are the people you want in your
Mhm.
organization. Those are the people who are going to make real impact, because they want to be in the room doing the thing, right? Yeah, so I think that's great. I think advice and a good reflection on everything we talked about here.
Yeah, and I think in most cases, I would argue that the students of today can't afford to, um, make a mistake in choosing to get a piece of paper or choosing to take ownership of their learning for themselves. Not just dollars wise, cost of education being insane. And but it's also the time. You're missing 4 years of your most creative, you know, uh wow, why did I just lose that? Your most formative creativity, and you're sacrificing that to be told and to be taught in a rote learning fashion. Did you pass your Calc 2 test? Did you pass your Phys 2 test? Did you, FEA, CFD, all of these concepts? Did you achieve the right answer? Great. Now go cram for the next thing. You know, what we talked about is filling in gaps with AI and really specific research will allow students to be entrepreneurs and not students of any institution, but students of, the market. If they have a problem that is in the market that they know they can solve by being creative and filling in their technical gaps with good conversation or AI, mentorship, uh, well, then we're going to have, some pretty super entrepreneurs up and coming out of this next generation and encourage them to do that as opposed to, yeah, go cram for your Calc 3 test.
Yeah, the rise of the solopreneur. I think that this is probably the era that it happens most, abundantly. Yeah, I do see that coming as well. And it's great to say, hey, it's okay to not go to college. If like you have something and you believe in it and you want to build it. You're young. If you fail, you can start over again. The worst thing
Yeah.
you could do is just get strapped up with a ton of debt and spend 4 years on something you find out 4 years from now it's not something you really love anymore because you never got into the industry and got hands-on experience like that. That's where a lot of your perspective on what you love changes when you go actually do the thing around the people doing the thing. So I think that's so important is like get kids in things earlier and let them try it. Go like that should be more important part of the process of schooling. And I think hey, we've seen a little bit of that start to happen um, comparatively to when I was in school and college. Um, but yeah, I think it's like such a cool time for young up and coming innovators to kind of just take on their own projects themselves and have the tools at their capacity to do that. It's a pretty cool
Mhm.
time to be 22.
Yeah. I mean, it is just legitimacy, though. That's where that sheet of paper comes in. But no one can argue with your legitimacy if you've actually built something. If you
Yeah.
can show them, guess what? Seeing is believing. When you slap XR on someone and they have Pratt and Whitney rocket engine in photorealistic detail in front of their face, and they're able to have hand occlusion to actually like essentially touch that part, save for the haptic feedback, but you know what? Maybe in 5 years that'll be solved too. And we'll have people who can build out, entire um an enterprise's like dream project, you know, in their home lab.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hope to encourage. That's what I hope to inspire is like that
Yeah, it's
person
great.
just keep working at it.
Yeah, this is great. I know we're like we're trailing into a different territory about education, but I think it's it's just like really important because like I've been a long time critic of the college system and school system. And I think that it's great in certain aspects. Obviously, education systems can be good. I've just seen some like just some issues with it that are quite troubling to me in terms of especially like the cost and the time. And I think that's it's like we could do a lot better with our youth and getting people ramped up into doing the thing that they're going to be really good at. um
Mhm.
so yeah, I think it's this it was really fun to talk about that. I know educators won't love this part, but yeah, you know what, you don't need to go to school to do this.
It's not to bag on educators though,
It's
because that's the thing is I've had plenty and I still work with educators. I'm trying to get back to school.
yeah.
And that's because these educators are just looking for, industry support. They're looking for, how to get their hands on the hardware to bring it to the students. What it is, at its core is that person, is trying to give opportunity to kids that they didn't have themselves.
Mm,
But it's the responsibility of all of us, um, to help, you know, those up and coming. And I
yeah.
think that, educators, who don't take education as like aren't passionate about education, yeah, they're not going to like to hear this part.
Mm,
But regardless of whether it's in colleges, in high schools, in elementary schools, like we're literally, I just got off the phone the other day with a director who was implementing a program to teach quantum science to kindergartners
okay.
and has had success with that
Wow.
through like ducks, like
Yeah.
literally like plastic toy ducks, and like teaching entanglement and superposition, all these concepts that are, abstract to even you and me, teaching them to those with the most pliant and creative minds, the kids, and they're picking it up and they're running with it. It's just a matter of kind of reshaping, how we present concepts, with technology and with the passion that these people so clearly have,
Mm,
and doing it at all levels. And yeah, hopefully reducing some costs at the upper levels if you do want to go get a piece of paper. But
mm-hmm.
it's goes all the way back to the extreme ownership of your own learning, meaning treat these things as learning to learn and not learning any of the one concept to do rote learning, to cram
Mm,
to lose, to cram to lose. Instead, you're adapting. You're literally increasing your neurological plasticity. And that's like the genius of actual geniuses. It can be measured in neurological plasticity. It's not that they just know more, it's that they know how to know more. They
mm.
know how to figure out that which they do not know. And they think creatively about combination of things that they do know with that which they don't. Like you said, A, B to reap C. That's true, you know, that's true intelligence right there.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, it like sort of just ties to like just creativity. Like it's more than that, but like being creative with what's in front of you is really like the core of how we got everything that we know. And that really ties into what you just said about the youth and trusting them more and not strapping them with debt and getting them to learn concepts about pretty complicated things earlier. Because like, where did all the best music come from? Where did all the biggest ideas and innovation come from? It came from young, intelligent people. It's rarely coming out of the older crowd. It's usually coming from somebody in their 20s, early 30s. That's historically researchable, like I think that's really important to know. Because the more that we give them in terms of the capacity to make those um ideas become tangible, the better, right? So I think that's sorry, I got
I
dogs
was
going crazy
wondering if that
upstairs.
was going to happen to me or you first, because
Yeah,
I have a dog who does that as well.
they must have seen a squirrel. But I think it's so important to give them the tools and support them to make those that make them able to take their creative ideas and make them tangible in the part of
Yeah.
their life where they're the most creative.
Well, see,
And
and I'll add one thing to that though, and
sure,
say that it's not a symptom of age, as if it's a physical limitation. Yes, the mind, is able to form pathways more easily at a young age. However, I think it's actually just a symptom of um, it's a symptom of being told no so many times. It's a symptom of being jaded, because like my father has an engineering mindset and is, by, all standards, the furthest thing from an engineer. He's a creative. He's worked in the creative field for his entire life. But that's who I learned my engineering mindset from. So who's to say, like, oh, well, he can't be inventive, or, it's just a matter of, can you relinquish that which, holds you down? Can you ignore the people that tells you it's a bad idea or that can't be done with the technology that you have at your disposal?
yeah, it's a fair assessment. It's like I love that because I am like a hyper creative person, and I think that's like, and it's hopeful to think that like the older I get, I'm not gonna get less creative, because
I don't
that's
think so.
I want to continue to be that. I agree with you there. I think just like broad strokes speaking, we you have like there's just something about the like the plasticity of the mind in your 20s, like you just have like this hyper, and it's like it seemingly like all the time. It's like always on. And I feel like the older you get, it does dull a bit. And maybe it is. Maybe there is a reason socially or construct why that happens. But yeah, who knows? I'd like to hope that we can inspire more kids to take their creativity seriously and be able to
Hmm.
find these tools and figure out how to use them and take those ideas and make them real.
I think what it also is, and this is, the more pessimistic side of me, is it's fighting that which I know which is coming. And, if you're reading the news and the announcements from OpenAI lately, it's the quiet part that they finally said out loud. It is, we're not seeing success in enterprise. MIT a month ago released a study that quantified 95% of enterprise AI pilots failed to reap a positive ROI. Well, what does that leave for those that are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on data centers, hundreds of billions of dollars training models? And then you have Anthropic's leadership on podcasts saying the models aren't there right now. They're just not. And you know what? Even if we, and my what I'm saying is, even if we hit that next stride and AGI is, here again, what good is artificial general intelligence to an enterprise that needs hyper specific intelligence? It's not useful. And in order to become useful, they'll need to give up their data sovereignty to then, change those models, or, slide that information in via RAG or via, several of these other agentic processes. And it's just, so what does that leave these individuals to make from their investment? And it's unfortunately kind of nefarious. It is the most addicting um, entertainment slash human connection replacing um, use cases, and frankly, like playing into the vices of people. And because these models, these applications of this technology, for erotica and this kind of stuff, will learn about you and what you like. This is existential. Like, if you're not a proponent of being innovative with AI, you are the target. of, these tools, how the people will actually reap the money from the populace is AI will become, and already has become, a vice. People are, creating AI partners, unironically, opening up a marriage to including, an AI partner. These conversations and these stories should be shocking to people, and frankly, it's kind of disgusting in my eyes, because you're turning something that could be so transformative and powerful to advancing science and humanity, and reducing it to vice for the sake of reaping back investment. And
Yeah.
to
That's,
present it to kids in that manner is, you either take ownership of your learning and adoption of it, or it will take ownership of you.
yeah, and that's kind of my question, and it's open ended. It's like, who's responsible? Is it the person building, or is it the consumer? And I feel like it's both, obviously, but oftentimes the consumer never takes any of the blame, and the finger's always pointed at OpenAI. I just think it's so important that like consumers see this themselves and take those preventative actions, because it's like it's voting what they build, like with your attention, what you're doing, what you're interacting with. If you're more intentional on that, well, they're not going to build these things if you're not doing it. So it's like,
Mhm.
it starts with us. It starts with us and how we're using technology.
Absolutely.
And that's
Yep.
like, vote with your dollar and you vote with your attention. That's where you get the most play in this world, on like guiding corporate America to do what's best for the citizens. They follow dollars. So if you're caring about tools that are going to advance humanity's ability to build things in like good ways, well, that's what they're going to build, if that's where your attention and your money's at. So that's really important, I think, to note for everybody listening. It's like, we need to be more intentional on how we're using stuff,
Yeah,
so that
and
it gets
and
built
how
for what
we
we need.
expose our kids to it as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, as
Like,
well.
that's why also parents in educational institutions should be flocking to local AI right now, because behind the camera is a cluster of multiple computers, which they have multiple GPUs on each, and it's my own AI cluster that is mine. That, I'm running open source models, I'm not paying API costs, it's on my own network behind my firewall. So those discussions are my own to delete and destroy. Not in a sense of, I don't want that information getting out as if it's a nefarious conversation, but it's just, humans have fundamental right to privacy. And that is just a concept that's completely being attacked right now. And it's like, oh, let's just scrape the internet and say sorry for it later. And no, this is not to just bag on OpenAI, and because, the breakthroughs that they're making are critical to the future. But I hope that, like you said, the rest of us, we remind everyone else, like, how you use it will shape how they build it. And what we really want is scientific improvement. What we really want is a way for children to harness their creativity to produce the companies of tomorrow. We really want, something that's net good for humanity,
Yeah.
and um, not a mirror that to look into and to um, see the darker side. Because you're
Yeah.
right, it's like war on drugs all over again. We have the United States playing the, oh well, let's just go, eliminate, drug trafficking and the source. And the source is turning around with the mirror and saying, we wouldn't be producing if there wasn't so much demand. So to your point,
Great
yeah,
analogy.
it's
Yeah.
it's critical to talk to everyone about this. And it's an interesting time to raise kids right now,
Yeah.
because these are hard and heavy topics.
But that's why I think that's like, looping back, that's why it's so important for those who are listening to this, who find this stuff interesting. This is for you. Like, go take these things and make something good. Like, go build something that we need. Think about it. Have a purpose. Like, have a mission. Like, why are you doing it? Are you just doing it to make money? It's like, why else are you doing it? We should be building things that we think are going to like make life better for humanity. How are you going to implement AI and XR together to make experiences for people to make their lives easier and do it in ways we've never done before. Like there's so much opportunity for that out there. And I think that it's really, really important to have that, like, that rhetoric being pushed of like, go build something useful, man. And like, look at all the problems in the world and like try to solve something and
Yeah.
use these technologies to do it.
And if
Um,
you don't know where to start, you reach out to you, reach out to me, please.
yeah, please do. I love talking about this, as you can tell. And that's why, and that's why the podcast is free. That's why I don't paywall anything. Everything on my channel is free. It will continue to be free. I have zero intention on making people pay for information, because of my core belief is that I think education should be free. I think that it's really important for me to give you guys quality information with quality podcast guests, and other content that I create, that you have access to that and it's teaching you something useful and you don't have to pay for it. All you're using or all you're paying is your attention. And I think that that's, yes. So like you said, if you need guidance, if you need to be pointed towards someone who knows something that I don't, I'm more than capable and happy to do that. And will continue to do so. But yeah, thank you for offering up your help as well, to anyone that's seeking it. And in, I guess in closing, like that's good. That's a good place to plug your socials, if they're your website, if there's anything else that I always ask every guest if they have a book recommendation, or and it doesn't have to be a book. Maybe it's like a white paper or something that you think
Yeah.
is like someone should see. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is a good place to plug that in now if you'd like to.
So, I'm still in stealth mode with the company. If you have any questions about, anything that you've heard or anything I've spoken about, as part of your company or an educational goal that you have, yeah, please reach out. Engineered Reality is my company right now. It's mostly just communication through Alejandro at engineeredreality.us is my email, which hopefully I don't get spam now. But um, beyond that,
I'll bleep it out and put it in the comments.
yeah. No, I'm down. Like if someone has listened for this whole time, yeah, they've earned it. I'd love to have that conversation. Apart from that, please reach out on LinkedIn. I'm super active on LinkedIn, as well as uh if we ever have the privilege of attending a conference like Archon or something like that in the future together, just walk right up. Like, please. Like, I had so many great conversations the last couple weeks with people. Yeah, literally us.
That's how we met.
We just out of the blue walk up, and what did we sit there for, like 4 hours or 3.5 hours before that speaking slot? That was awesome.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it was
yeah.
excellent, man. I appreciate that. That's like, those are my favorite people, who are just like, hey, I'm Alec. Hey, hi, I'm Cody. It's like, hey, you want to talk about rocket engines? And it turns into like a 3 hour conversation, and you
Yeah.
just learn so much. It was nice. Yeah. So I love people like that. So yeah, again, Archon was great. I plan on going to some more conferences as well. So
You
if you see
should
me
hit
at
up
one, please come
AWE
talk to
next
me.
year. Yeah.
It's on my list. Yeah, it is. It's on my
Ori,
list.
Ori better invite you now.
I hope so. Yeah, I still have to reach out to him about doing a podcast episode. Um, got some pretty cool news. I don't want to break it yet, but next month
Okay.
something pretty cool. And you already know this person. But yeah, there was an invite that was accepted, and it's gonna be pretty nice.
Awesome.
To go check that out. So hey, perk your ears up on that. Keep your eyes out for that. I'll be posting about that here soon. But book recommendation. Do you have a book or a white paper or a person that is
Ooh.
like a must follow, anything
Yeah,
in that
so
realm?
uh Dr. Carolyn Dweck's growth mindset.
Okay. That's a book.
That one, it has nothing to do with XR. But
Okay.
what it has everything to do with is getting out of a fixed mindset. You know, Once you're in your growth mindset, your direction will be evident. Your passions, your competencies, you will have direction if you're able to adapt to whatever hurdle that you face. And I'm not going to be so bold as to say it changed my life, because that's a concept that is in many books, but that's a really good one that I appreciate. um Company of One is also a really good one. Like, there's a couple in here. But as far as people, someone like I had mentioned her before, a mentor. And actually, if you want her to get on the podcast, it'd be awesome. A recommendation I'd have for you is Shelley Peterson,
Okay.
because she is so kind, so intelligent, and has so much experience in implementing, visualization technologies, AR, XR, um, to just amazing effect in industry. Um, yeah, it's small, kind of like small circles, and we're all, this tight knit community. So
Yeah, I will never
I'm
turn
looking
down
forward
a
to seeing who's coming up.
I'll never turn down a good podcast guest, especially an XR minded person. It's like, yeah, this it's so cool right now. It's like really running. I I always expected that it would grow, but like my goal was to get to episode 10, and now I'm breaching into I'm already booking 17. So like it's so cool, and thank you for that. So yeah, I'm like super excited for what's coming up. I got 3 podcasts coming out, including yours, and then Sebastian, we're recording on
Yeah,
next Friday. That's gonna be a great one.
awesome.
Yeah, and then I'll just say here.
Yeah.
Also, Alex is going to be doing a podcast, but it won't be in this format. So that's
Ooh.
a little different outside of the
Okay.
wheelhouse. So yeah, yeah, it won't be over the wire. We'll say that.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Alex Goldberg.
You're gonna see some amazing things.
Yes, yeah, it's gonna be pretty neat. So that's coming up next month. That's fun. But yeah, I think that's a great closing, and I appreciate you coming on. I think that well, this is the longest podcast double that I've ever done. Never done a 2-hour podcast, but it was like seamless. It was so nice. Thank you for being someone so easy to talk to, and you have such a wide breadth of knowledge and so many things. And thank you for sharing all that and having, I think, really good advice for not just students but also people at the enterprise level. I think that everyone listening can get something out of this. XR, AI, Gaussian splatting, just general life advice. So I think this is definitely one of my favorite podcasts so far. And I'm pretty excited to put this one out.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And, to have good friends is a blessing. So,
It is.
uh,
Yes. And I look forward to coming out and seeing you in person as well here.
yeah,
Whether it's Sierra's face or not. But that'd be pretty cool if it
we'll
was.
keep that we'll keep
What
that front of mind.
Would not
Got to
mind
work on
seeing
that.
the space plane in person. It would be kind of cool. Just
Yeah.
say, just gonna float that out there.
Okay.
So,
All right. Noted.
all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Look forward to seeing you soon and talking.